everyone. Welcome. It's so good to see you. Welcome, welcome.
Christiana, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing
I
well.
I love to see the video on, so thank you. Kimberly, Angela, Karina, Janice, we love to see people. Um, Let's go ahead and get started because we've got a lot to cover today. Before we get started, we do have Spanish interpretation, so please go to the bottom of your screen and select the globe and select your language. Even if you speak English, you want to select English, so if a question is interpreted, you will hear the interpretation. If you don't see the globe at the bottom, I know my Zoom has updated. There's three dots that say more. You can click that, and then you'll see interpretation in that little list. If you're on a cell phone, go to the bottom of your screen. You will see three dots. Select the three dots for more, and then you will see the interpretation. Julia, do you want to make the announcement in Spanish? Thank you so much. We also have, if you look at the very top of your screen, you will see where it has some little tabs, and you'll see meeting, Griffin Morales screen. That are the Spanish slides. And then Christiana Morales, those are the English slides. So welcome, everyone. Hopefully, you made it to session one. We are now on session two of Smart Staffing, Participant's Guide to Building Your Self-Determination Program Team. My name is Christiana Morales. I am the Executive Director at Self-Determination Institute, and we have been hired by the Inland Regional Center Local Volunteer Advisory Committee to create this training for you all. So thank you, Local Volunteer Advisory Committee and Inland Regional Center. My co-trainer today is Jessica Mercado. Hi, Jessica. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Christiana. Thank you so much. Yes. And welcome to session two. My name is Jessica Mercado. I am a program director for an FMS company launching here in California. I've been in the program for over 5 years, helping the FMS side of business and helping the families and independent facilitators with the program. So, very delighted to be here. Thank you so much, Christiana. Thank you.
So happy to have you. And so last time when we met, we talked a lot about the you being the boss and the different models for the financial management services, the difference between an employee and an independent contractor, workers' comp and liability insurance. This time, we are going to be talking about finding your perfect match, finding the people to hire, how to interview, all of those kinds of pieces. Now, I don't want you to stress and feel like you have to take a ton of notes. We are putting these slides into the chat. You also get a PDF of our book, which has all the information that you could possibly want with links to tons of resources. So the intent of this is kind of to give you a little bit of an overview, but if you need more in-depth information, go to this PDF. It has so much information in there, going much more in depth. We didn't want to overwhelm everyone, but you do have all the knowledge you need to to build your great self-determination program team. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We are going to talk about finding your perfect match. So here are the pieces that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about hiring, we're going to talk about an agreement, a handbook, work boundaries, and then legal stuff, which sounds daunting, but it's really not. So let's start with talking about the hiring piece. And I think this is one of the pieces that is kind of the most daunting for people who are going into the program who've never been employers before. I was one of those people. I came in, I'd never had to interview people and hire them. And the first thing I thought is, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to do agencies. But over time, I realized the power of being able to hire your own people is part of that freedom of self-determination program. So I dipped my toes in a little and then I did a little more and now it's old school. I got this. It's not hard to do. So I'm telling you, if I could do it and I can learn to do it, I know all of you too can do this. So let's start by talking about what you put in a job posting. And that I mean, I'm starting at the very basic because I didn't even know how to start there. What do I put in it? And then where do I post it? Those kind of things. So we're going to talk about that. So one of the first things, because we're in self-determination program, I want you to kind of think outside the box and think of a new way of what a job posting might look like. So our first instinct is to kind of start with, I'm looking for a person who's an expert in autism and behavior and those kind of things, which, of course, that makes sense. Those are things we are looking for, but that's not the only thing we're looking for. And here's why I'm saying we might be able to think outside the box. If you kind of focus on those kind of clinical things, then you're looking at kind of using the words like assist and monitor and document, those kind of things. And that tends to be more of a clinical mindset. And we're trying to work our way over to a person-centered mindset, which is super exciting when you start thinking about this. Last time we talked a bit about that person-centered plan and it being the foundation for this program. From that person-centered plan is really where you're going to figure out, who do I need to hire? What are the positions? Who am I looking for? And so from that and your IPP, you've discussed it with the regional center, you realize, okay, I need to hire somebody to do X, Y, and Z. You've got an idea of what you want them to do. So to think outside the box, I want you to kind of think about this idea. If you have somebody who loves to do dancing, think about hiring somebody for them who loves to do dancing. If you have somebody who loves to go see horror movies, the best participant support for your loved one, that participant, might be somebody who also likes going to horror movies. Because I got to tell you, I'm not a horror movie fan. So I probably am going to go to that thing and I'm going to be sitting with my eyes covered in the back, do not want to be there. We want somebody who's going to be engaged with them, who wants to be part of that community, part of their lives. So start with kind of thinking about what is it that they're doing, because a lot of the tasks that they do, we can teach them. It's harder to teach somebody to have something in common with them. So one of the benefits that I've seen with almost everybody I've worked with is when you have the right person with the participant, behaviors go way down. Way down. It's really interesting. And I see this over and over and over again. So part of it is what we want to do is find that right person, not because they have the right skills or they've been doing this for years and years and years. What you want to do is find the person that's going to be that right fit for your loved one. So think about promoting that independence, focusing on goals and preferences, and think about words like empower and partner when you're describing that job position. So this is a hard one because it's not natural to us. Like our first instinct is to go for those kind of medical model pieces. I will tell you, we've had so much great ability to find the right people when you use a person-focused, person-centered ad. So now let's talk about. So we've got this kind of idea that we're going to do a person-centered ad. Where do you find these people? Where do you place this ad? How do you do this? So we have a few recommendations. One of the benefits of self-determination program is you can hire friends, family. If they're a minor, a parent can't be paid, but other people in their lives, aunts, uncles, cousins, could be paid. And so for us, in my family, we started with that. We started with people we knew, family, friends, because I was just getting my, feet wet in the hiring people thing and before I went out to hire people we didn't know. Once I kind of figured that piece out, then I started thinking, okay, where else can I find people who have the same interests as what my son is interested in doing? So I had one client who wanted to go to a dance class. So we posted they had a bulletin board. We asked them, can we post a job thing and said, hey, do you want to get paid to take a dance class? And they were like, yes. We had so many people that were interested in this. So we were able to find somebody who was there, knew the community, was part of this. I'll tell you a little bit more about this story later on as we go on. But so think of if they want to go to take a college class, post it at the college campus. If they like coffee and they want to go out and drink coffee every day, post it at a coffee shop. Do you like coffee? Would you like to get paid to go drink coffee? Those kinds of things. Um, and it's not just about people who go out into the community. What about in your home? What do they like doing at home? Are they crafters? Like, do you like listening to music? Do you like this type of music? Those kind of things. So we want to get them to have similar interests to the participants. Um, so places of worship, studios. One of the places that I had figured out was our school at the elementary school. Their teachers' lounge had a bulletin board. And so we had lots of teachers who had, when school was out or after school. So if you're looking for somebody who's going to you need help with reading or some of the things like that, that's a great place to look for. And also, a lot of those teachers' aides, those one-on-one aides, are also in that teacher's lounge, so they see it. So that's a great place to find people. Um, and then there is the online, Indeed, Care.com, those kinds of things. Um, I have had some luck with that, but in some ways I found them to be a little overwhelming because they did bombard you. So I would say that would be my later down the list as you're getting better and better at this, then I might go to one of those places. Word of mouth, friends of friends, going to local volunteer advisory committees and talking to the other people there and say, who have you hired? Who are you working with? Do you have a recommendation? Those kinds of pieces. So, um, and then something that I probably didn't think too much about when I was putting it out there, but if you're posting an ad, you probably want to be careful of what you're putting on there as far as you're not going to put your home address, those kinds of things. If you don't want to put your cell phone out there, maybe you have another phone line, you get a Google number or something so that you don't have to pay for that way. You're not giving out your personal line, those kinds of things. So, you know, those are kind of good pieces. So hopefully that gave you some good ideas of places to cast your net. So now the next thing I really didn't know how to do was how to interview somebody. I was actually kind of nervous about this. Um, there are specific things that you cannot ask in an interview. Um, Specific things are you can't ask their age, you can't ask what religion they are, what race they are, national origin. You cannot ask their marital status or if they're planning on having children. And you can't ask if they have a disability or a medical condition. Now, there are things in here that might kind of impact when you're hiring somebody. So, what you could ask is like, do you have experience with a specific task? Are you able? So you can't say, do you have a medical condition that you could lift that would prevent you from lifting? So, but you could say, are you able to lift somebody into their wheelchair or into their bed? So you want to ask about it, their specific abilities to do the tasks. You can ask about their availability and schedule. So you may not say, hey, do you have kids? Are you available during the day? You would just say, what's your availability? Can you work during the day? Those kinds of things. Ask them how they handle stress. If you have a loved one who can be a little trying at times, you ask them about that. How do you deal with somebody getting upset? How do you deal with, and so you want to kind of ask those things. If they are going to be driving, it's totally okay to ask them if they have a car, if it's a safe car, do they have a driver's license, do they have insurance? So those are all things you can ask about. So Be careful about the things you can't ask about. Now, they can share that information with you. You just can't ask about it. So keep that in mind when you're interviewing. Again, you don't have to memorize these. They are in the handout that you got, so you can look at the really specific questions. I actually kind of made a cheat sheet for myself that so I just had a little sticky note so I didn't accidentally ask somebody just chit-chatting with them while I'm interviewing them. Oh, these are the things I cannot ask them. So I had a little note for myself so I was sure to not ask them those things. And I think this one is Jessica.
Yeah. Perfect. So now that you've selected your candidates, now that you've gone through the interview, yeah, and you say, okay, I
Oh, Jessica, I think you're breaking up a bit.
yes.
Do you want to try
Oh my
turning off
goodness. There you go. Can you,
your
my
video
camera?
and
Yes.
see, yeah, see if that helps.
Perfect. Because I don't want to drop you guys. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Perfect. So now that you've selected your candidates, I know that Christiana talked about selecting your candidates. Let's just walk through what happens next. So on this slide, you'll see the employee onboarding timeline. Notice it's divided into two parts, what you do and what your FMS handles. Your job, the green arrow, as mentioned, is to select your candidates, your employees, your staff, and agree on the terms of employment. Once that's done, the baton passes over to your FMS provider. You will notify your FMS provider that you want to onboard new employees, and they will guide you through the steps from there. Just keep in mind that all FMS providers in California have different processes. So your experience may look a little different depending on who you're working with. Your FMS is going to assist you with collecting tax and eligibility forms, such as the I-9, the W-4, running background checks and clearances, and completing the official onboarding of your employees. Now, I do want to make a huge note right here for those of you who will have 5 or more employees. Your staff is required to receive sexual harassment and abusive conduct prevention training. This is required by the California law. Okay, so if you are an employer in this program with 5 or more employees, please, please, please ask your FMS provider about this training right away to make sure that you are meeting California labor law standards. Okay, this is just required for those employers that have 5 or more employees in their teams. Okay. Now, here's the most important thing of this slide. I really want everybody, to just hear this and me share this with you all because it really is, in my experience, the little part, right? The nuance that a lot of us miss. And that is making sure that nobody, like your employees, your staff, your team, they may not start work until your FMS provider gives you and them an official start date. Okay, Jessica, what does it take them to get that start date? What does that look like? There's a few things that need to be in place. You, the participant, need to be fully onboarded. Your regional center needs to have sent your signed spending plan and your purchase of service authorizations to your FMS provider. And depending again on your FMS provider, a portion or all of your team may need to be enrolled before you can begin. So again, every FMS has just the slightly different requirements. Please be sure to check in with yours directly. And if you feel like you're ready and you're just sitting and waiting, please speak up. Contact your FMS provider, ask them, hey, where are we in the process? What is still pending? Is it something waiting on the regional center? Is it one of my team members who hasn't filled or finished onboarding? Your FMS can definitely help you follow up, escalate, and advocate on your behalf, just like your independent facilitator. So Please know that you do not have to wait in silence. Your FMS, your regional center, your independent facilitators, we are all here to support you. Okay. Alrighty, well, perfect. We're gonna keep going. And the next slide is the agreement. We have pretty much hired, and now we are on our second milestone, the agreement. Okay, so the agreement is a written contract for the specific job that you are hiring someone for. Think of an agreement as the foundation of your working relationship with your employee. This agreement is going to cover the job duties and schedule and breaks and sick leave rules and their pay rate, their service code, payday, schedule, as well as an at-will employment statement because we're in California. So now, Jessica, why does this matter? Why do agreements matter? Well, remember in session one, when we talked about you stepping into this new role of an employer, when you become a participant in this program? Well, part of that role is having that clear written agreement in place. A strong agreement is going to prevent misunderstandings before they even happen. So it really protects both of you as the employer and also the individual as your employee. And here is what you need to know depending on your employer model. If you're picking a co-employer model, your FMS will provide the agreement for you. That is part of the responsibility to you. If you are in the sole employer model, let me tell you that majority of the FMS providers still help you with the agreements. But it is always better to ask rather than to assume. So if you're choosing the sole employer model, please ask your FMS directly under this model. Will you provide the agreement, or is that something I need to create myself? This is a question I want you to ask before you even commit to an FMS provider, because if you are new to this program and you do not yet know how to write an employment agreement, please find an FMS that will walk you through it and hand you the tools. You deserve full support, not an FMS that's simply going to process your payroll while you're leaving you figuring out the paperwork on your own. We want to make sure that you are fully supported because, again, those models exist. And it works for somebody who may already know what they're doing. They already know how to write things like that. But if you are just getting started, my recommendation is to look for an FMS that's going to offer you full support. Alrighty, well, next up is
I'm
Christiana.
I'm going to add in that agreements really help because, so think about it, you had your IPP goal based on your person-centered plan, and then you made that job description. You said, these are the things I need somebody to help you with. What can often happen is what I call mission creep. And this is just happens with anybody who hires employees. Oh, you're here. Could you also do this? Could you also do this? And this is when employees can feel kind of like taken advantage of. So it's really important that you all have kind of a written these are my job duties. And then if you want to add something, you're going to sit and talk about it and say, "Hey, I want to add this to your job duty," and you'll talk about it, and they'll say, "Yeah, I think I could do that," and you make that agreement. So having that in writing and thinking about it, it's just helpful. I know it's not kind of a natural thing to do, but it is something that to think about.
Mhm.
Tied to this agreement is an employee handbook, and I want to kind of point out that just as we talked about, now there's a slide after this that's going to talk about it, but Jessica already alluded to there's a difference between co-employer and sole employer when it comes to this agreement and handbook. Co-employer, that financial management service is hiring them on your behalf. They are probably going to have agreements. They will have agreements and handbooks and those kind of things for you. If you are in sole employer, they may have one for you or they may have you doing your own. In either case, there are some pieces into this employee handbook that are really important that you're going to want to have included because you're going to have people in your home, right? So things that in the handbook might be a welcome, telling about your family, what the job is. So it's not kind of the nuts and bolts that are in the agreement. Nuts and bolts are how many days you're going to work, what your schedule is going to be, what your rate of pay is going to be, what your tasks are. This is more kind of like the overall rules. So they know what the kind of how it's going to go at your house. Code of conduct and professionalism. This is kind of a great place to talk about if you don't want them to be on their cell phone the whole time, right? This is a great place to talk about cell phone usage or maybe photos. Some people they love posting things on social media, do not care, post away. Other people are like, no, you don't have permission to take pictures while you're at work and post it on social media. So those are things you want to think about and tell them kind of upfront so they can follow the rules too. We want them to follow the rules. I'm going to talk a minute about house rules. So I will go more detail in a moment on that. You want to tell them so they know how often they're getting paid, their timekeeping rules, like what they need to do in order to check in and out, those kind of things. And they will get sick leave. In California, everybody gets sick leave pay. And then also they need a place to find out what the safety and emergency procedures are. And this is good for both of you. If they, as an employee, get hurt at work, what's going to happen? What do they need to do? If the participant gets hurt, what are the safety procedures? What are you going to do? So here's breaking down kind of the two. I will tell you that co-employer and sole employer sound scary and sound very different. They really aren't that different in the overall piece. What happens is that in the sole employer, and sometimes people kind of move to sole employer as they're more comfortable becoming an employer. Um, you get more freedom. You get to have more say in the rules around the employee versus since the financial management service and co-employer are the employer of record, they really kind of get to set those rules, right? So, however, for those rules, you should be able to tell your financial management service in co-employer, I have a few house rules or a few things that I want to make sure are part of the handbook. So my employees know what the rules are when they're at my house.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about work boundaries. And this is where I think it gets hard because in many cases, your home becomes their place of work. So there may be parts of your home that are private. You don't want your employees to go into. You may have, you may say, you know what? Some people are like, go in the kitchen, eat whatever snack you want. I don't care. And some people are like, no, I have everything, divided up how I want it. So, my employees need to bring their own food. They shouldn't be eating our food. Um, we talked a little bit about technology already. Photos of your space, your kid, your participants, pictures of them or even of their room or those kind of things. Maybe you don't want them to take pictures of your home and share them on their social media. So you want to talk to them about that, how often they're on it. Maybe you have an expectation that they will only use their cell phones for emergencies. Or maybe it's like, well, I'm doing this. Take a private call. I don't care. So it really is up to you. And then visitors is another big piece. You can say, you're not permitted to bring guests to work, those kind of things. This really comes into play when you're talking about live-in caregivers. You'll start hearing more of these come into play for live-in caregivers, but they also impact, anybody that you want to hire. So here comes the hard one. And this can be a little awkward, but we're saying it's important to talk about it up front. In the self-determination program, we are permitted to hire friends and family members. And it's important. We just talked about, okay, we've got some house rules. We've got some things that are going to be on with our employees. It is really helpful to have clear boundaries with the family members when you're hiring them, saying, while you're on the clock, here are the rules. I know that you are a cousin and you are used to coming in and, you know, going wherever you want in the houses, but all of our employees have the same rules. So when you're working, we want you to follow the same rules of work, right? So try to keep those same boundaries. I think it also helps too of while you're in the work hours, I'm the boss. I do get to tell you what to do, right? And then, well, okay, you're not on the clock now. You're just cousin. You're just friend. Now, keeping those boundaries is really going to help prevent misunderstandings. And we don't want to cause any problems with our family members or anything like that. And so when you cross into an employee employer relationship with them, starting out by having these really nice, clear boundaries is going to make it easier for everybody. So they really understand kind of what their roles are, what the rules are. And I will say sometimes with family members, because they're so comfortable with you, that sometimes they forget that they're working and that they do have expectations of them while they're there to be doing the things that were listed in that employer agreement. So we want to make sure that they are doing what they're there for.
That's correct. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the same line, right? It's something that trips a lot of new employers, and then that's understanding what counts as pay time. And here is the definition I would love for you to hold on to. Hours worked means any time your employee is under your control or required to be on duty. Okay, so let's walk through the three examples right here on the screen. So, say that if your employee is working through their meal break because you need them, that is paid time. They have to get paid time. If your employee is waiting for an appointment with you because you need them present, that is also paid time. And if your employee is traveling from job sites during their shift, that is also paid time. So I want to add some important context here. I am not to provide or give any legal advice. I always just encourage you to verify what I share and consult a qualified professional if you do want in-depth questions, but I do want to make sure that you have enough information to ask the right questions. So California labor law is pretty clear that employees must be compensated for time they are under your direction.
Oh, did we just lose Jessica?
Me? Did you lose me?
We lost you for a second.
Okay, okay. I'm still here. But you do tell me. Thank you. Um, so if you're employee,
Oh dear, we have lost you again.
freaking thing. I'm so sorry.
Our
Okay.
internet, there's not much we can do about it. Um,
I hate this for you guys. I want to make sure that I give you everything. So, but yeah, on the other hand, can you hear me?
we can.
Everything good? All right. So, if your employee has finished a task and has downtime, where they are completely free to do as they please. That is a different situation. And if your employee is not under your direction at all, they can wander off or they can handle personal matters or they have been fully relieved of their duties. That time is generally not compensable. So the line here to remember is, are they under your control or not? For anyone that wants to go deeper in this, I definitely encourage you to look into the California wage and hours law and definitely speak with your FMS or consult a labor law resource. The goal here today is simply to make sure that you are aware that these rules exist because they protect you, your employee, and knowing them, obviously, it's going to definitely protect you as the employer as well. Okay.
I'll give you a couple questions I get all the time. Do employees get paid for driving to your house to work? That would not be paid time. But I will give a little bit of a caveat there. We have seen if you live in a very rural area or place where it's very difficult to get to, occasionally there will be exceptions to that rule in order to get employees that are willing to work with you, that you can make an exception. But in general, know that their travel time to and from work are not paid. Um, the other question I get is what about Meetings. One of the things we're going to talk a little bit at our last and third session about having team meetings. If you have a team meeting, you have all of your staff get together, they do get paid for that time. So remember that think of that. I don't under your control, it kind of makes me laugh. Like they're under your control. But if they are required to do some tasks for you while they are with you, then that is considered paid time. So and if you ever are not certain about something, that's when you would reach out to your financial management service and say, hey, I'm doing the schedule and I have this and I want to know if my people will be paid for this time or not. The big one I think is waiting for that appointment, and where you're going to know whether that's paid or not is really in that description of what the job duty is. If the job duty is just transportation, and they drop off that person and they are free to go and do something else, then they would not be paid for the time that they are, you know, free to go and do what they want. If they are there to support the person, so maybe they drive you to a class or a doctor's appointment or something, and you need support while they're there, and they stay with you, then they would get paid for that time. So it's not one of those just easy cut and dries. So if you ever have a question, do reach out to your financial management service.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the
Okay,
last one
now,
we have is the legal.
yep. And okay, I know that I don't also like the word legal up on the screen. I don't think a lot of us like it, right? But I want you to think of this as your legal equals to your workplace safety net. The things that are in place to protect you, your employees, and your home. These are your shields. I don't like you perceiving it as threats. I don't like perceiving it as threats, but they're definitely just there in place to protect you. So let's just talk about how we're going to protect your workplace. Because as an employer, even a household employer, California law requires a few things from us. First, requiring is hiring notices. At the time of hire, you are required to give your employees forms that detail their pay rate, payday, sick leave rights. These are part of the documents and information provided to your employees at the start of their onboarding process. So your FMS should be helping you with this part here. It's the packet that they'll receive in order for them to onboard to become your employees. Second is the anti discrimination and harassment piece. California has a strict zero tolerance policy. So, you, as the employer, are required to provide your employees with that state pamphlets or information on discrimination and harassment. And as mentioned, there are some cases that some employers have to have mandatory training. So, again, please check in with your FMS to make sure that your staff has received the appropriate materials, information, and training. Okay. And third, the workplace postings. This is this is new, and a lot of people that are in this community, again, because we are household employers, we may not know a lot about this posting. But required California labor law notices must be accessible to your employees. So your employees at home have to have some view of the postings. Uh, Here at All Work, we will be directing employers to the California state website so that they can download the postings they need to meet their obligations as an employer. And it is very important that you communicate with your FMS and ask for guidance and resources. And if you ever need to find those postings on your own, I will drop the link in the chat right now so that you can kind of see where that is in the California website so that you can find everything you may need regarding the workplace postings. But again, this is something that you most definitely can touch base with your FMS provider, as it is something that they can also guide you. Or you, whenever you do go to the website, you can kind of see the employer postings that you can download. They're free and post around your household. So just know that you've got this and you have a team around you to make sure that you are set up for success and you have the documentation and the information readily available for you and your team. Okay.
Ah, so here comes one which is really important. And it is one that is not very well organized and regulated with the self-determination program right now. So we're going to talk about it a little bit of the requirements and then how to deal with these. So the first one is that employee expenses must be paid. This is labor law. So if somebody is an employee, they would be paid for what they called work-related expenses, which means mileage. If they are driving for you at work, they need to be paid mileage. If they go to a let's say you go to a community, you go to a movie theater, they do not pay for their own entrance fees. Their fees should be paid. Now, there's a couple ways that this can happen. One is ADA laws do require that, you know, support people can have a free entrance. Now, whether that happens or not is a difficult thing. Some places it's not a problem at all, and some places it is. Some places accessing it becomes a problem. So it's really important to, if you have something where a support person is going, that you talk to your financial management service beforehand and say, how do we make sure that this is going to be covered? It may be you calling, let's say they want to go to the zoo and the zoo has a policy where they let somebody in. Then you you'll want to do a little legwork beforehand to make sure that they're going to be able to get in. But the main thing is the employees are not paying for these entrance fees, that they need to be paid for. We also do not have a system for reimbursement right now. So the key really is that you need to make sure you've got it set up beforehand so they are ready to go. So, if it's going to be movies, then you're going to make sure that you have that movie ticket paid for beforehand so you can go, those kind of things. The other piece is cell phone. So if they are required, now different financial management services work differently. Some of them may have a paper timesheet that they fill out, in which case you would not need a cell phone coverage in there. If they are using their cell phones to clock in and out or to keep in touch with their scheduling or anything like that, if they need to use their cell phone for work, then they need to have a amount paid to them. It doesn't have to be a huge amount, but it has to be specifically for cell phones. And because this is a work-related expense. Now, you're not going to pay their whole cell phone bill because clearly they're using their cell phone for other things. So usually it's somewhere between, I would say, $5 to $20 per month, really dependent if it's a really part-time person. But it's something you're going to want to talk through with your financial management service because this is mandatory. And we are currently having some issues with having it put on your spending plan or how it's going to be paid. So this is one of those things. We want you to talk to your financial management service. Some of them have it included in their employer burden rate. Some of them have it included in what they call other employer related costs. So you have that percentage, which is that you added to your hourly rate, that employer burden rate. Some of them have an additional other related costs that would be in addition to that percentage. And that's where the cell phone could go in. Maybe if they have health insurance, it could go in there. So that's where this could potentially be. Or if they have neither of those, it may be that it needs to be put on your spending plan as a, technology cost, and that's where it goes. Just like mileage is on there for the mileage. So keep those in mind. Again, because there's so many different ways this could happen, we just want to put it on your radar to make sure that you are asking about this. And Jessica, I think this one is yours.
The rule. Yes, the background checks works at the FMS level and it is required on both models, right? The co-employer model, if you're choosing the co-employer model, majority of the time, if not most of the time, we will require your staff to undergo a whole background check process. And that will be also paid out of their own pocket. There is a cost for somebody to do the background check, and that comes out of the employee's that they cover their own cost. And that's for the co-employer model. Again, if you're thinking about that model, it's something that you may want to also consider tell your employees, because that's a cost that they have to consume and cover themselves. Unlike the sole employer model, that one has exceptions and specifications as to who needs to take a background check, meaning that there's three. If you have somebody, there's an exception here, that and this person needs to meet all of the three little steps, meaning that if I'm hiring somebody and that person, one, is my family member, two, lives with me, and three, they're going to be providing direct hands on care, meaning feeding, toileting, bathing, that type of care, direct hands on. Then that means that this person is exempt from going to do a background check if you, as an employer, decide that they don't have to do it. Again, they have to meet those three things. They have to be a family member, they have to live with you, and they have to provide direct hands on care in order for them to meet that exception of you saying, oh, no worries, this person doesn't have to do the background check. I want you to know that you still have the option. Even if a person is exempt from doing a background check, you could still, as an employer, decide to have this person go through the background check process and still have the eligibility process run through them. So that's the rule, meaning that anyone in any of the models, co-employer or sole employer, that will be providing personal care or hands-on care, they do have to go through that background check. The only exception is that one if they do live with you, they're family members, and they're providing that type of care. Otherwise, if you feel like, well, this person's just going to be companionship, kind of just coming to the house, there's really no need. Uh, then again, it'll be up to you if you are under the sole employer model, because again, co-employer, the FMS will typically or most likely will ask all of your staff to go ahead and do their background checks. Just a note here, if you're looking to transfer from an FMS provider to another FMS provider, and your staff has already background checks and they're actively working with you in the program, and you just are trying to transfer from an FMS to another FMS, they are not required to go through the whole background check again. They only have to pretty much, you have to let your new FMS provider know, hey, I have a team that's already pretty much been screened. They went through the background check. At that point, the new FMS will help you retrieve their background check results so that they don't have to redo the whole thing again or pay again for that. So when you are transferring, make sure again you communicate with both your current FMS and your new FMS so that you can work together and make sure that you can extract those background checks if needed. All right, and I think that's it for this slide.
And I will add that background checks, there was a while there where they were taking a really long time. Right now, they did hire some additional person at Department of Developmental Services, so they are going much quicker. But remember when Jessica said your participant cannot start work until they are cleared to work? This is one of the things we're waiting for them to clear for. So this is something that can take that time.
Mhm.
We need to wait. And you cannot back date or back pay people before they were cleared to work. So that's a really like I can't say that enough. That's one of the most common mistakes that I see is we have somebody start and they weren't cleared to work. So it's really really important you get that start date. Um, so one of the reasons I will say I prefer the sole employer because I have that freedom then that I'm not required to do a background check for somebody who isn't doing personal care. I have a little bit more flexibility. So I actually believe in background checks. I think they're really important. And one of so you can't hire somebody who has a background check, like they work with a vendor and they already have a live scan somewhere else. They have to actually do this specific one for a self-determination program because it's not a one and done. They will keep it up to date with the financial management service. If something happens in the meantime, they will notify that, somebody has broken a law or there's a reason that they can no longer provide this service. So it's kind of a higher level of check than just the normal um, uh, live scan. The other thing that I'll say, which I think is a bummer, is it is the employee's responsibility to pay for that live scan piece. Um, in its Part of the reason I think this was done is that in the kind of the realm of people who work as direct service providers, um, that is a kind of a normal thing to have them pay for. The thing that's so different is now we're going into self-determination program and we're hiring people who are not typically what you would consider direct service provider. They're working for a vendor or, other types of things where that's their role. We're hiring community people and friends and those kind of pieces. So it seems odd to us that you would have to pay that background check. There is no mechanism to pay it any other way. And so I wish there was a way around it, but it is written into the law. But I just wanted to give you a little background of why. Um, Not my favorite thing in there, but it exists. It is what it is. So I just want to tell you that I'm afraid that all of this stuff can sound very scary. It is not scary once you start doing it. You can do this. Uh, think about those person-centered job descriptions. And when you're working with your person-centered planner, say, hey, can you actually additionally help me with some job descriptions for these? Go back and look at that person-centered plan and say, oh, a lot of times in a person-centered plan, I'll say, what am I looking for in somebody who's going to help me? What personality type? Am I I like really bubbly people or I like really calm people? Do I like people who I'm personally not a super morning person, so you might say, hey, I'm not a morning person, so I'm going to look for somebody who is going to be pretty calm in the morning and not be talking at me a whole lot, right? So I think those are things to really think about. Remember the interviewing legally and fairly. Do go look at your book so you can look at the questions you cannot ask. Make yourself a cheat sheet. It's a really good idea. These are the things you can't ask when you're interviewing. Um, Remember those agreements and handbooks. This was more for your information. The financial management services are really pretty much going to take care of most of this, but you just need to be aware and be familiar with them. Ask them for a copy of, like, can I see a copy of what goes to my employees? I want to see what's in there. So we're both on the same page. Um, Talk about those house rules, and do kind of be strict with your family members and say, your friends and your family members, if you hire them, saying, hey, we are going to stick to these rules while you're working. Um, and really do partner with your financial management service for those legal, those payroll compliance things. Um, that's what they're there for. That's where they're here really to be your helper in this, to make sure we're following the rules and that we don't have to memorize them because they're really complicated. In California in particular, it's a very employee protective state. So we want to make sure we're being good employers. We love our employees. They take such, care, and they've been with us for a long time now. And so I think a it's been a learning journey for both of us. So I am going to stop sharing my screen now. Let me figure out how to stop sharing. Okay. Give me 1 second. So we can see everybody. There we go. I can see everybody now. So how is everyone doing? Did we overwhelm you? Are you okay? Give me a thumbs up. Give me a, we got this. Tell me how you're feeling about this. Oh, good. Yay. I get
Yay.
lots of thumbs
Okay.
up. Okay, good. Well, let's answer some questions. So please feel free to either raise your hand or put your question in chat. We've been tracking the ones in the chat already, so we can do those. But this is your time to ask anything. So let's get going. Uh, First question we had in the chat: how much time does a prospective employee need to take to complete the task in the blue bars? And is that paid time? Oh, okay. So we're talking about the chart that had, this is the part you have to do, and then what the financial management service has to do. This is all pre-hiring them. So they are not paid for any of this time. And this is where you're interviewing them and they've got to get their paperwork turned in. You've got to do those background checks. They don't get paid for that time. Um, we want that to happen as quickly as possible because nobody wants to wait to start work. And you also don't want to wait to, um, get them going. You probably need this position filled. Uh, Ask your financial management service. When you are interviewing financial management services, one of the questions I'm going to ask is, how long does it take you to onboard? What's your
Mhm.
process? Is it so? Some have paper forms people need to fill out. Some have something that the participant is filling out online. Some of them say, you just point us, you give us the information for the employee, and we'll take care of it from there. So, depending on what your needs are, that's what you want to ask your financial management service. How do you help enroll those employees? So, great question. Um, Jessica, what would you say the typical amount of time is to,
To onboard a participant, an employee,
yeah.
it really depends. I've in my experience, I have been in teams where employees pretty much are very quick turnaround time, meaning like, okay, you send the employee the information they need to complete, and I've seen people or groups delivering that within 1 day. But I have also seen teams that, that they take a long time, meaning, as Christiana mentioned, some of them have to go through the background check, and now we have to wait for background check results. And now we have to wait for the person to not only complete the background check, but also the enrollment paperwork. And there may be a little mistakes here and there, right? All in sense, just give yourself 1 to 2 weeks, just generally 1 to 2 weeks to make sure that your employees have enough time to onboard. And after 2 weeks, the rule of thumb is always to check in with your FMS. Like, hey, is everybody onboarded? Who's missing? Majority of the time, hopefully, when you choose an FMS provider, you also have access to kind of see the tracking of your employees, like how they're doing, who's finished, who's done. If not, that is why you need to check in with your FMS provider and kind of just see who's done with the enrollment piece.
And I would say too that sometimes it's dependent on the potential employee getting their paperwork in too. So sometimes they
Mhm.
need a little nudge um, to get their paperwork in. So that can make it
Correct.
stretch out. So how quickly they get their paperwork in, how long it takes for the background checks are kind of the what I would say the two pieces that can impact that a lot.
Mhm.
Um, So there was the question, will that come out of the budget? I'm not certain what part we were talking about, but I'm guessing we were talking about the cell phone and the mileage.
That's
So
correct.
there we go. Okay. So um it will be paid through a self-determination program. In other words, it's not coming out of your pocket. How it gets paid is the tricky part, right? So whether the financial management service has it in their other employment related costs, if they say it's not and it's on, it could be on your spending plan where you put cell phone. I will tell you, the sticking point a lot of times is the term stipend. You can't pay stipends in with Medicaid dollars. So if you call it a cell phone stipend, it tends to trip them up. This is actually an employment related cost. So I tend to call it that. So it's a cell phone employment related cost, and that seems to help a little bit. But so yes, then it is paid out of your spending plan somehow, whether it's through those OERCs, which are other employer related costs, whether it's already included in their employer burden rate, or whether you put it as a line on yours. So that's where you want to double check with your financial management service. How is this getting paid? Now, just know it's not necessarily for every single service code because um, if you've got somebody who's invoicing and they never come to the house, they're not going to need a cell phone stipend. It's these employees. So don't think it has to go for everybody. It would just be the people you are hiring as employees. Um, ah, what if my FMS said they do not have paid cell phone? What should I do? Great question. I just spent the morning talking to the ombudsperson's office. We talked about this issue. I told them we were going to be doing this training, and I know that it's not the easiest thing to get on these spending plans. I do know it's part of labor law and it's important. So
Mhm.
they said to contact the ombudsperson's office. I am putting the information in the chat for you. So if you are having problems where that cell phone employer cost, see, I didn't use the term stipend, that cell phone employer cost is being difficult to get on that, do call the ombudsperson's office.
Mhm.
Um, what happens when an employee is not working out? Can you explain steps to take to protect yourself? Oh,
Ooh.
this is next
Mhm.
session. You want to come to next session because we are going to talk a lot about that. So, what if it's not working out? How to let people go, all of those things. So, I love it. You were just one little step ahead of us. So, great, great question. Um, the next one is anyone using an FMS, financial management service, who allows an employee caring for someone needing 24/7 care for longer than 9 hours in a day? I'm really struggling with balancing financial management service and in-home support services fairly between my employees. So there's two parts to this. So I am aware of a financial management service that is limiting how many hours per day if you have in-home support services. It is one specific one. You could hire people to work for longer than 9 hours per day. So excluding that one, you can hire somebody to work for more than 9 hours per day, but you have to pay overtime. So that
Mhm.
overtime is going to impact your overall spending, right? So it is not the most economical way to pay for people is going into overtime. So we are actually next meeting also going to talk about scheduling and overtime and those pieces because I think that's really, really key is while you're doing it. When you talk 9 hours too, this is we talked last time about classifying people, how those
Mhm.
employees are classified. So the thing that's really important is you need to ask your financial management service when do they start earning overtime? Because it'll be different based on how they're classified, which means some will start overtime after 8 hours, some will start after 9 hours. Um, whether they took a lunch break in there, whether it was paid or unpaid. If it's unpaid, then it stretches out a little bit, right? They were off the clock for an hour, then you're going in a little different. So we're going to talk a lot of detail about that in the next session. But that is a really good question. Jessica, do you want to add anything to that?
I would only echo what you said, Christiana. Most definitely wouldn't add anything else. Super clear.
Um, can we still call transportation stipend? That's so funny. I didn't know stipend was a bad word in this world. I do know like you can't just give somebody a bonus with Medicaid dollars. They don't permit that. Um, they are apparently kind of attaching those two things. So I wouldn't call it transportation stipend. I would call it mileage. We are required to pay mileage. Jessica, what is it now? 71 cent per mile? It's set by the state. And
Mhm.
let me double check it because
I think it's 70 cents IRS. So let me make sure. Me
I'm just
too.
double check. Oh, it's very specific.
70. Yep,
There you go.
72.5 cents.
Thank you. Somebody had just posted in that. I thought that was funny. That's very specific.
Mm-hmm.
0.5%. So yes, so that is set by the state, um, by mileage, and then how your financial management service collects that information is dependent on your financial management service. Some of them have a form where they have you fill out, your start odometer reading and your final odometer reading. So they all kind of do it in a different way, but there's a way, or some will just do distance. So it's really ask your financial management service how
Mhm.
your employee tracks it and turns it in so they can get paid.
Yep.
And okay. Alana, how are you doing? Go ahead and
Well,
unmute.
Hi, Christiana. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate answering that question. And I know it was a silly question, but I did see sometimes regional centers would, when I would put the miles, they would correct it to transportation stipend. So that's why I'm like, okay, whatever you call it, as long as you approve it. But I do have a
Right.
second question for you. And I wanted to raise my hand because I did not want to put it in writing because it's a little bit difficult to formulate. What do we do? What do our participants do in a case if they have a provider? Let's say they have two providers who serve a severely medically impacted participant. One provider did not show up, and another one has to stay to assist the parent to go into overtime. Is there overtime emergency that we can address that emergency by definition, we can plan a little bit, but things happen. Sometimes things happen in batches and there is nothing can be done. Something happened to a second provider, but we need to have two people, a parent and one more person working the participant. So how do we address that issue?
I think you almost answered your question in your question, which is you should plan for emergencies. So when you are creating your initial spending plan, plan for overtime. I think one of the biggest mistakes people do is they think, "Oh, we won't need it because I use a lot of part-time people or these kind of things." Plan a little bit because like you said, what if somebody is all of a sudden sick and somebody's already used their 40 hours and they're already going to go into overtime. So do plan, keep that buffer. And then what I would say is, since you're aware that this is happening, that's a good time to then
Mhm.
say, I need to relook at the spending plan and say, am I going to need to move money because this is going to be more expensive? We spent more than we had expected to at that point. And as we all know, it takes a bit of time to move money in the spending plan. So there's nothing you can do in that moment. So planning ahead so you have the funds there if you need it to a certain degree, and then being aware you may have to adjust your spending plan. That would be my two
Mhm.
pieces.
Okay, thank you.
So, but I love how you're already thinking about that. You're already saying something could happen and
Yeah.
somebody could go into overtime. So we definitely need to be thinking along those lines. I think one of the things I learned over time was having buffers in your spending plan. Have those buffers in there. Uh, so the next question says, if my employee takes my daughter to the zoo or the movies, which are not paid for in the spending plan, do I pay for my employee entrance admission out of pocket? I knew this question was going to come. So no, you should not have to. The way the rule is for, if you look at the directive that talks about purely social, fun thing, the participant would need to pay their own entrance fee. So if you go to the zoo, it's expected that the participant would pay their entrance fee to the zoo. However, if they have a paid employee with them, it is not expected that that employee would pay their entrance fee. Now, would you get pushback from the regional center to put it on the spending plan? Possibly,
One, yeah,
possibly.
so we can go.
But
Almost done.
oh, sorry, hold on. We have something that came off mute by accident. Um, but what we do know is we can't expect that employee to pay it. So I would say if you have the funds to do it, to pay it, because we don't want to get sued for not paying our employees entrance fees. Before I would do that, though, I would talk to the service coordinator and talk to the regional center and explain that these costs need to be covered because it is an employee. Again, get that ombudsperson's office involved if you need to, because the directive was clear. So we just need to make sure that they understand. Now, what I'll hear sometimes is a regional center will say, "Well, ADA, and exists, and so they should be let in for free. We are required to use generic resources first. ADA is not a generic resource, it is a law. And we are not responsible to enforce a law prior to being able to use these funds. So there's a big distinction here between generic resource and a law. Now, what I will say is that I have had participants who, zoo is a great example. He actually loved going to the zoo. Had thought that had never had a problem with somebody coming with a support person to the zoo, and this day had a problem, and uh, it was so hard for them to get them to the point where they would let them in that he had just a full meltdown, and it just ended up being a mess. We don't want our families to have to go through that. That's not reasonable. There should be a reasonable accommodation. So I would say it is absolutely okay to talk about it. Talk it with your service coordinator, talk with your financial management service, and talk with ombudsperson's office if you're having problems with this. I know it is a problem out there. So
Mhm.
I wish I had an easy answer for you, but it is legally mandated by labor law that we do pay those entrance fees for them. Do you want to add anything, Jessica?
No, I mean, we don't like the word legally, right? But it's like, for example, as I was expressing also to Christiana, like if my job, my employer right now was to tell me, which actually I am going to be meeting with them soon, and I'm going to be traveling, right? They're going to be sending me off to see them. The company has to pay because they have an employee doing those type of duties. So to Christiana's point, it is really sometimes difficult in within our program here in California, making sure that all of us, the regional center, DDS, and the financial management, we all make sure that we're protecting you and your role of employer, because that's part of the role, right? We have to make sure we hold hands with the regional center and with DDS, meaning that yes, they have the waiver hand, the program hand, and we have the labor law hand, so that we can both hold hands and protect you and making sure that you are pretty much in compliance. To Christiana's point, when it comes to reimbursing employees or kind of just covering their fees for doing the tasks that they need to do to support you, that's where we need to make sure that we talk to your, like Christiana said, this is a situation where if you have to repay or cover the fee or the costs for your employees, let's go ahead and talk to your service coordinator, get your FMS involved. Let's talk about how we can protect you and your employees. That way, we start a conversation, because it may start with one family, then another family. And as you guys know, the ball keeps rolling and we are stronger together. So if you guys escalate this and the FMSs start getting involved, the DDS will get involved. And again, it's just a group effort and team effort on making sure that we are protecting one another. So, yeah.
Alona, did you want to add to that?
Yes, I just wanted to say that many places like San Diego Zoo, Long Beach Zoo, Safari, you do not have to bring your child. I'm speaking from personal experience to stand in line and worry about it. You can actually go get on your own and get your documents, whatever it's birth certificate or else, and they give you a permanent pass. So you pay for your child, but IHSS person or personal assistant, however, whatever role you assign to that person, they go for free. And so it's not every single time that you need to stand in line. And the same thing with movie theaters. It really depends on a manager. But if you call them ahead of time and talk to them, they let you do that. Most bowling alleys and other places will also let you do the same thing. In fact, some of them, once they learn that, the situation, they say, oh my gosh, the kid pays, but we'll give him shoes for free as well. Just there's a lot of goodwill there, and I don't want to put a burden on parents because I have a child with disability as well. But I have succeeded on many occasions, just a kind phone call, and that you avoid, lines and meltdowns and everything else that way.
I love that. And so the other recommendation I can make is that we're going to be starting a support group for Inland Regional Center coming up next month. It would be a great place if you are interested to come. We will get the flyers out for everyone very soon. Um, sharing information like this is so helpful. Alana, it's so helpful to know, and building that community, and hey, this is what you do. This is who I talk to. Really, really does help everybody. We jokingly call self-determination program. We're building a plane in flight. It feels like that very often, and so pulling together, working together is really important. We have a question here that says, what do I tell an employee that says that sharing the GPS location via their cell phone is a violation of their privacy? So part of this, so what they're asking about is the EVV, electronic visit verification. And what that means is that this is a federal law. This isn't something that we have a choice in. And specific service codes require that there is a verification that the person who is working with them, who is paid through Medicaid dollars, is actually where they say they're going to be. Now, I understand it being kind of people feeling like, ew, like they know where I'm at, those kind of things. But I want you to think of it in this is how I think of it, which is if I was gone and I was people were supposed to be coming and taking care of my son, I would want to know that they were showing up. And that really is what the purpose of EVV is to protect the people in the program that people aren't saying they're coming and providing services and not providing them. So it is a federal mandated law, so we don't get a choice in this. And so if they really do not like using their cell phone for this, some of the systems for EVV will permit you to call from a landline if people, I don't even know who has landlines, but some people have landlines that they could call from a landline. Another alternative, if they really don't like that idea, is if the participant at their place of business, their home, has a tablet or something where people could check in, right? So they would have a login where they would check in from there. So if this is a big concern for them, they should talk to the financial management service to find a way where that check-in can still happen. But so they
Mhm.
can't not do the EVV check-in, but there may be an alternative way that might make your employee a little bit more comfortable. So we want our employees to be comfortable.
Right. I would like to add something there as well, Christiana. The EVV, like you mentioned, it is law, but also it won't track your employee at all times. It really is the system is made and defined so that the only thing that's going to be tracked is when your employee clocks in and then when they clock out. After that, there's really no tracking at all whatsoever. It won't be following them. It won't be exchanging data as to where after they log out of work. None of that. And I completely understand. I was one of those too, like, oh, I wouldn't want to be tracked all the time. And it is not. I want to make sure that you feel comfortable, your employees feel comfortable that when they're using an EVV, and I want you to feel comfortable because, like Christiana mentioned, this is to protect you and to protect the participant and most definitely to protect them. And this is also how we get funding, right? The California gets funding. We need to make sure we actually up our numbers of people clocking in and clocking out through this EVV verification. Again, because it is definitely to protect you, protect them, and it's not going to track anybody at all times. It is only going to count whenever the employee is clocking in for work and clocking out when they go home. That's all I wanted to share.
What do they call it? They call it a pin drop, meaning it'll just their that location at the moment that they clock in, it'll say, yep, they're where they say they said they're supposed to be. And then
That's correct.
that's it.
Hmm.
And then it doesn't follow you the rest of the time. Um, if you are a co-employer, do I still have the right or say as to how I want to hire an individual, how many hours I want them to work, etc.? That is a great question. Yes, you are
Yes.
still the one. You are picking who you want to hire. You are doing the interviews. You are going to decide the rate on your spending plan. So you'll kind of already have that decided before you start interviewing people, but you'll have that figured out on your spending plan, how many hours you want them to work. You'll be doing their work schedule when you want them to come. So uh, that's true in either co or sole employer.
Mhm.
Did I miss any things that are the participants' responsibility? I think I hit them all.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's see. Oh, this is an interesting question. My loved one needs a laptop or tablet to work with their employee. The employee needs a laptop or tablet to work with my loved one. The employee laptop would belong the employee laptop would belong to the employer, my loved one. Can we add the cost of these two laptops or tablets into the budget and spending plan? Ooh, that's a really specific case. I would say it would really, really depend on that individual's needs, why the employer would be providing a laptop to the employee. So I would say that is I would need to know more. If you want to reach out to me and ask me privately, I'd be happy to kind of dig in a little bit to that. But I think that's a very specific case. So I'm not going to say yes or no on that one. Uh, Next question is, oh, this is a good one. Jessica's going to like this one. Do we have to pay the same wage to all air employees, like respite, recreation, coach, ILS?
That is a nice question. Yes. Okay. So the answer is you have to pay your employees the minimum wage per your county or city. As you know, California, we do have a state California minimum wage, but then you go into the cities or counties, and each city or county sometimes have their own also minimum wage. So you kind of have to abide as to what the minimum wage is. And from there, now you could technically now choose the tier of payments or for your employees. I have heard that some FMS providers in the co-employer model have some sort of limits, perhaps. Can't speak on that, but if you are on the co-employer model and you're interviewing FMS providers, perhaps this is one of the questions that you can ask them, like, are there any limits of me as managing employer dictating the pay rate of my employees? Because at all work you won't have any limitations. What you will, again, you'll just have to define as making sure that you do pay your employees at the minimum wage what the law is required. And if you have employees that perhaps, say for instance, you're hiring me and Christiana, I'm pretty much new. Maybe I don't have a lot of experience, and Christiana has been with you part of the team for years. It will be up to you. Maybe Christiana, because of the relationship experience and whatnot, perhaps you want to pay Christiana a little bit more and me start a little bit less so that I can get the experience, I can get comfortable. It'll be up to you how you define the pay rates, but just make sure that when defining those pay rates to think you are in alignment with the minimum wage law. And two, if you're choosing co-employer, you talk to your FMS and make sure that you don't have any limitations dictating your pay rate. Yes.
I will say setting those wages is a big topic right now, very large topic. So things that I think that you should consider when you are setting those wages. So you would want people doing the same job. Let's say you have three employees
Mhm.
you're hiring to do the same job. You would expect them, because they're all doing the same job, to be pretty close to each other. One might be managing the other two, like, or scheduling or something, but in general, you want to see them in the same range. Um, what I think sends up red flags is if you've got three people working at at the same position at $20 an hour and then one person working at $60 an hour. That would send a big red
Mhm.
flag to the regional center of like, well, what's going on here? Why is this so different? Also be aware that there are, for specific service codes, especially if you have something where it's therapeutic, they may have licenses that they are required to have, like um, a level of education or training that they need to prove, and those people will probably make more. So let's say you do have behavioral and you're required to use a BCBA, you would expect those rates to be around that rate. If you have somebody who's kind of helping do the behavior, but it's not therapeutic, it probably wouldn't be the same rate as somebody who has a BCBA. So kind of those are things to keep in mind of the my favorite was when DDS was asked about it, they said it is going to be the FMS's responsibility to make sure that rates are reasonable. And we said, well, can you define reasonable? And they did not have a definition for us because what's reasonable to one person may not be to somebody else. So what really it should happen is talking to your IPP team. Really
Mhm.
talk through what the needs are for the person and what the right job, the person that you're creating, what's the what are you going to need to hire that person? And don't compare to other people because depending where you are in the state could have an impact of
Mhm.
the rates that, for similar things, they could be paid a different rate. Um, like we said, if it's really rural, it could be a different rate. So there's a lot of things to consider in on this. I will say, self-determination program is under scrutiny like every other um, Medicaid um, program is in our country. And so what we do not want to see is people getting absor exorbitant rates that would raise red flags for people. So we don't want to see family members getting $100 an hour, like those kind of things. We want everybody
Mhm.
needs to be reasonable. We want to preserve this program and we want it to last so it's around for everybody for a long period of time. So be conscientious with the rates, pay enough that you will have happy employees, but use that reasonable level.
Mhm.
Um, What about when a vendor increases their rate or their services, but the budget is already allocated? Do we get an increase from the regional center? So
Mhm.
I will say that if they are a regional center vendor and you are using that same regional center vendor with the in your program, you can talk to the regional center about that and say, hey, I have this in my budget. I'm using it hour for hour. It's going to cost more. Will they make an adjustment? And they tend to be pretty reasonable. If this is a non-vendor, so when you're saying vendor, you're saying somebody from the self-determination program, but not a traditional vendor, you're not using it hour for hour, then they typically would not increase for that adjustment. So keep that in mind. Um, that just because something goes up doesn't necessarily mean one of the rules is that we have to live within our budget. So that 12-month
Mhm.
budget. So it may mean that you might have to make some choices and say, well, I maybe have to do something else less in order to do that. So just, keep that in mind. Um, I've heard some companies are easier to accommodate other ADA than others. Has anyone had better experience with particular movie theater companies than others, like Edwards, Regal, AMC? Oh, great question. If anybody has some recommendations of theaters or places that do well, I think some had already gone by in the chat. Check the chat and please, that's what this community is great for. Alona, do you have some?
They are all privately owned, so it really depends on a manager because in one town where the movie has been shown and my son wanted to go, I called and I said yes. But in a different town, Edwards Theater is owned by a different manager, and they said, we don't do it. So sorry about that. It really depends on the manager. Call them. Every movie theater has ADA compliance page. It's kind of not always easy to find, but you can, you will locate it eventually, find a manager, call them and ask if they will make that accommodation. And many of them do.
Doing a little legwork beforehand, I think is such a great recommendation
Mhm.
to um, and then you'll find your favorite places and say, I'm gonna go here all the time. This is the one. Um, Christiana, can you please share info about upcoming independent facilitator trainings? Um, yes, and you can find them on our website, which I will put in the chat. It's complete guide to SDP.org. And there is a page for independent facilitators if you are looking for training. The um, there is one that is coming up for this fall through Taft College is starting. I know that Guidelight Group offers training. I know that Independent Facilitator Academy, I always get it wrong. It's Academy or Institute. They offer ongoing training. Autism Society of Los Angeles, ASLA, has trainings going, but I don't know if they have anything that's running right now. So those are kind of four you can check into. Those are kind of the four off the top of my head I can think of. Um, where do you go to get this EVV? Oh, great question. We were talking about EVV so it is something set up by your financial management service. So you don't have to go anywhere for it, and they will make sure that it's set up with your employees. So you, as a participant, don't really have to do anything about it. Uh, it is the financial management service who will make sure that it is being done. They are the ones who have to set up with the EVV program. And if you have any questions about it, they're the ones to reach out to talk to. So, but they're the ones who do the EVV piece. And we have one last question, and we're right on time. How do people handle the difference in wage between financial management service pay and in-home support service pay? I have an employee who insists I make up the difference when he needs to claim in-home support services. Oh, that is a really hard one. And I would say part of the power of the self-determination program is we can pay more than others. What I will say is um, I'm not certain. Well, one, they can't insist you make up a difference um, because there's just really no way to do that. You can't. So Medicaid payments have to be accepted as payment in full. So if you take in-home support service pay, that has to be your full pay. And so unfortunately, we can't just do a like extra. That's why that word stipend became a problem. You can't just say, I'm going to pay somebody $2 an hour extra along here for a couple reasons. One, minimum we have to pay is minimum wage. So that wouldn't work, right? So what I would say is I would break up the tasks so that the person who's doing the in-home support service hours, lots of people do those as overnight hours or when there's less demanding, and then for more demanding tasks or maybe somebody going out into the community or those kind of things, that's when they would get the other rate. Jessica, do you have any comments on that?
You're super clear on that, Christiana. I can only echo it. I don't want to confuse people, but yes.
So I think again, that's one of those things, kind of maybe divide up the job
Hours.
descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and maybe don't have the same person doing your IHSS and make sure that their tasks are less. So you don't have one person who's getting IHSS hours and making less money compared to somebody who you don't want them doing the exact same job and one person's making less. That would not be fair. So I I I would do it by adjusting tasks.
Mm-hmm.
So remember, we have next Monday, same bat time, same bat channel, same link. At 4:30, we are going to be talking about it's our third section. We're going to be talking about timesheets, schedules, breaks, letting an employee go, all of those kind of things. It's so funny because it's clearly something you guys are interested in. So I really hope that you will come next Monday to our third section. Again, don't forget that you do have the link in the chat for the slides in both Spanish and English and to the book that has all of this information. So please feel free to download those for free. And we will see you next week. I hope you have a wonderful week and we will see you soon. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.